Protestant theology. Let's talk about Protestant theology, and then we're going to finish this course with Catholicism and what was happening especially in the Roman Catholic Church leading up to the 20th century. And we'll talk about concepts like infallibility and the split that resulted in what Holy Family Catholic Church is today. Protestant theology. First of all, some of the context. We had people like Karl Marx, if we've heard that name, published his Communist Manifesto in 1848. Where he said that all ideas are for a reason. They have social and political functions, and they help to bolster the existing order or not. So what you say and what you think and what you do helps to keep structures intact, think the hierarchy of the church, or topples those structures, which is why I often refer to religion as the opiate of the people. We're familiar with opium, a drug. Religion is like a drug, right? People want their religion because it helps them to keep doing what they're doing. To feel good. Last class we talked about Immanuel Kant. The challenge with Immanuel Kant was that he raised this question about how do we know that your way of looking at reality is reality or is true? He suggested that it wasn't so objective. So there were three ways of overcoming this predicament that Kant set up. One, religion came to be grounded in the ethical rather than in the intellectual. We're not going to ground our faith, our religion, in reason. No. Instead, we're going to ground our faith in morality. Why are we Christians? To be good people. Immanuel Kant suggested that when he made the distinction between pure reason and practical reason. There is no pure reason, he said, but there is practical reason. And so practically speaking, what are we going to do so that we all get along? What rules are we going to follow so that we all get along? That's practical reason, and that's what religion is for. Schleiermacher, a Protestant theologian, said, religion is not based on reason, but it's based on Gefühl, the feeling of dependence that, because he was a Protestant theologian, he said that think back of Jesus' relationship with his disciples, the dependence there, or the feelings of dependence that happened during the time of the Reformation in the 16th century. That's what religion is based on. It's not based on reason. It's not something that comes out of the head. The second possible response to Kant back in that time was that of Hegel. Hegel said, reason is reality, and the only reality that is reason. Hegel came up with a way of thinking. So his reason, his way of thinking, said that there is a thesis. Come up with anything that you believe, or used to believe, right? You have a certain thesis, okay, that I used to believe that Easter eggs were placed in that basket on Easter Eve by the Easter Bunny. That was my thesis. That's what I believe. And then when the thesis comes up against an antithesis, that's another idea, right? The other idea was someone told me that the Easter eggs didn't come from that, but were actually left there by an adult like my parents. And then out of this then, when you get one idea and a conflicting idea, then you come up with another idea, which in the end is the synthesis. It's the new thing that you believe. And what happens is you take this synthesis, which really is simply a new thesis, and then if there's another antithesis, then out of that comes another synthesis. And we keep progressing as human beings by using this kind of reasoning. We think through things, and if something doesn't make sense, then we ditch it and create a new idea that takes its place. So his system then was, for him, this is what reason is all about. This is how reason happens. And that reason, which he called the spirit, ooh, that sounds like a very Christian term. That spirit, or that reason, is very dynamic, and it's always advancing. It's always progressing. And he said, think about it for a moment. All religions, all philosophical systems, social political orders, they are all moments in the Spirit's thought of us progressing as a people. What is the Christian religion? It's one step forward for us. It's one idea which, when there's another antithesis, which was happening at that time, then it will create something new. So why hold on to this old Christian religion when actually the Spirit's working through this to create something new? A third response to Kant is that of Søren Kierkegaard, a Danish philosopher. He said, there's no way that reason can there's no way you can wrap your mind around religion or the things of faith or the truth. There's only one thing that can get to truth, and that is faith. He wrote a great book called Fear and Trembling, where he talks about Abraham getting ready to sacrifice his son. Isn't that the craziest thing? God tells you your descendants are going to be as numerous as the stars. You finally have a son in your very old age, and then God tells you to sacrifice your son, take out a knife and kill your son? Does that make sense at all? Søren Kierkegaard said it makes no sense. Faith makes no sense. Why would God ask you to pull out your knife and to kill your only son if that son's going to be the one that leads to your... It makes no sense. But it takes faith. It takes a leap of faith. That expression comes from Søren Kierkegaard. The leap of faith, where you have to take that risk. It's like jumping off a cliff, not knowing if what's going to happen. He said, faith knows God directly. Faith is not reasonable, but is always a risk that involves the denial of oneself. Abraham was ready to take that risk. The greatest enemy to Christianity, he said, is Christendom. Ooh, remember, that was when state and church were both together. Which simplifies the matter of becoming a Christian. I don't know about you, but I'll tell you how I became a Christian. I was baptized at 3 weeks old. Did I choose to become a Christian? No, I just was made Christian. He's saying that's the greatest enemy to being a Christian, is people like Father Jamie thinking they're a Christian when he didn't choose to be a Christian. And he called that cheap Christianity. He would have said, a person like that, Father Jamie at 1 year old was still a pagan. Don't call him a Christian. Because even though he was baptized, that is cheap Christianity. He's still a pagan. He said that Christianity has to involve pain or cost. Think of the early martyrs of the church, right? It's like war games. Did any of us ever play like games when we were kids? When I was a kid, the war game was Risk. There are all sorts of video games that are war games. Yeah, it's fine to play a video game. You get into it, you die in a video game, and like there's no risk playing a video game. That's how Christianity is, he said. There's no risk. It's like playing a game. Christianity has become a game. And if it's only a game, there's no real victory. He said, what we call Christianity is merely our playing Christians. Oh, let's get together and play Christians on Sunday, right? Because it's a mockery that preachers continue to commit the crime of Christendom in making Christianity an easy thing. It's not an easy thing. His big problem was that you can be a member of Christendom without being a Christian. Think about that for a moment. Father Jamie, baptized at 3 weeks old, he was part of Christendom, part of the church, but he wasn't a Christian yet. He didn't make that faith decision for himself. So his question, how can you be a true Christian when you live in the middle of the Christendom, this system, this church, which claims to be pumping out Christians, which he thought were really pagans? So the church has got to come up with responses to some of these ideas. Yeah. And what's happening is that the Protestants could think freely about these things. We as Catholics, if we thought freely about these things, we would be excommunicated, or worse, centuries before, we'd be hauled before the Inquisition.
Yeah, we couldn't even ask questions in school.
There you go.
I used to get in a lot of trouble.
There you go. The sister would probably pull at your hair or something to let you know that...
Get that ruler out. Don't ask questions like that.
So the Roman Church, in contrast to the Protestant Church and its liberalism, the Roman Church tried to keep its theologians in line.